Have you ever felt that something inside you are changing, but you can't explain exactly what? Suddenly the world seems different. Its perceptions expand, ancient certainties begin to crumble, and everyday life loses the brightness it had before. If this is happening to you, be aware. These may be the side effects of spiritual awakening. And the most curious? Almost no one talks about it. The truth is that awakening is not just a sea of roses. On the contrary, this process can bring confusion, existential crises, social detachment, and even changes in the perception of time. But at the same time, it reveals hidden truths, strengthens intuition, and completely transforms the way you see reality. After this process, there is simply no way to be who you were before. But why does this happen? Why do some people go through this change while others remain stuck with the illusion of reality? The answer lies in the expansion of consciousness and the effects it causes. In this video, I will show you the 10 most impactful signs of spiritual awakening. And get ready. By recognizing these signs, you will never see life the same way. Not everyone is ready to see beyond the veil of common reality. Spiritual awakening does not happen by chance. It is a silent call for those who are no longer content with the illusion of the imposed reality. Suddenly, previously hidden truths begin to reveal themselves, and the feeling that something grand is happening becomes impossible to ignore. This knowledge does not come through conventional books or logical explanations. It arises from within, as if an ancient memory were being activated. But beware, with this awakening, the side effects of seeing the world with new eyes also come. The perception of time changes, priorities become, and the mind begins to wonder about everything that was once accepted without hesitation. What once seemed absolute now dissolves in doubt, and the existential crisis settles like a rite of passage. Many try to resist, clinging to old beliefs, but those who accept this journey soon realize that sacred confusion is part of the process. It's like disassembling a puzzle and realizing that the pieces never belonged to the game that imagined. With this new expanded consciousness, there's also the removal of what no longer resonates. Superficial conversations lose their meaning. Old relationships begin to seem displaced, and social distancing becomes inevitable. It is not loneliness, it is a vibrational realignment. As a radio adjusting the frequency, energy changes and attracts new connections aligned with the spiritual mission. What seemed comfort before now sounds like a golden cage. And when the mind allows itself to get out of this prison, the true energy transformation begins. The sensation can be overwhelming, but also liberating. When intuition strengthens and the signs of the universe become lighter, there is no return. This is where many realize that awakening is not a final destination, but the beginning of an endless journey. And what comes next can be as intense as necessary. Are you ready to feel this vibrational change on the skin? The spiritual awakening is not like a soft breeze, but as a gale that turns everything upside down. Suddenly, the vibration of the body changes, and with it comes the side effects: insomnia, chills, tingling, exhaustion for no apparent reason. It is not a disease, it is energy transformation. The body needs to adjust to the new frequency, and this adjustment is rarely comfortable. Anyone who has gone through this knows. One day you're full of energy, the other looks like it was run over by a truck of emotions. The secret? Allow yourself to feel without resisting. As this energy reorganizes, ancient patterns begin to crumble. Situations that once seemed normal start to bother, as if a tight clothes are finally perceived as suffocating. Toxic relationships, destructive habits, and limiting beliefs begin to crumble, and this can cause an internal whirlwind. But it is precisely in this chaos that the true change happens. Just as a diamond only forms under pressure, the soul refines in the middle of this vibrational storm. This phase can be challenging, but there are ways to soften the impact. Core salt baths help discharge excess energy. Nature walks stabilize vibration, and meditation helps the mind not to panic. Practices like Reiki, conscious breathing, and even change food to something more natural can relieve the process. The important thing is to remember that none of this is a mistake. It is just a necessary realignment so that expanded consciousness can fully manifest itself. And when this energy transformation stabilizes, something curious happens. The perception of the world changes. Signs become more evident, dreams gain new meanings, and intuition begins to communicate almost palpably. It is as if a new meaning is activated, allowing you to see beyond the obvious. But is this keen perception a gift or more challenge? With the ongoing energy transformation, reality begins to present itself in a completely new way. Dreams, once confused and meaningless, become coded messages full of symbolism. They are often premonitions, answers to internal dilemmas, or even spiritual encounters. And it doesn't stop there. Intuition is no longer a mere feeling and becomes an inner compass, indicating paths clearly and insistently. How many times have you felt something without explanation and then realized it was right all the time? Yeah, this only tends to intensify. The outside world also begins to speak. Repeated numbers, coincident meetings, songs that seem to bring direct messages. All this becomes part of everyday life. These are small signs, but for those who have expanded awareness, they do not go unnoticed. It is as if the universe began to whisper hidden truths, waiting for you to finally recognize them. The challenge here is to trust in these signs. The logical mind will try to discard them as mere coincidences, but anyone who has experienced this too knows that chance has very little to do with it. Energy sensitivity also amplifies. Platter places may seem suffocating, and certain people drain energy only with their presence. Have you noticed how some interactions leave an inexplicable weight on your body? This is because, with high vibration, the perception of the energy field becomes sharper. Staying balanced becomes essential. Using crystals such as black or amethyst tourmaline, practicing walking barefoot on earth, and establishing energy limits are ways to avoid overloads. But this amplification of perception is not always comfortable. Often, seeing beyond what others see can cause sacred confusion, where old certainties begin to collapse. And this is one of the most challenging moments of awakening. What happens when everything you believe to be true begins to dissolve? There comes a time when everything seems to fall apart. The beliefs that previously gave security begin to undo, such as sand dripping between their fingers. What was previously seen as right now seems like a great theater, and the illusion of reality becomes evident. This inner collapse can be overwhelming. The mind struggles to find meaning, but the more seeking, the more you realize that the old answers no longer serve. The sacred confusion is inevitable, and many wonders if they're going crazy. But in fact, they're just awakening. It is common to feel that nothing else fits. Religions, systems, values. Everything begins to seem built on a fragile foundation. This is the moment when many people move away from rigid ideologies and look for their own answers. For some, this means diving into the study of alternative philosophies. For others, simply means learning to live without labeling each experience. The great irony is that by abandoning the need for certainties, there was a freedom that once seemed unreachable. And of course, this process comes with intense emotional waves. There are days of absolute clarity, where everything makes sense, and days of complete despair, where nothing seems to have purpose. This is part of the paradigm's change. Just as a computer needs to be restarted to function with a new system, the mind goes through a period of instability until it fits the new consciousness. It is an invitation to embrace discomfort because it carries with it the seed of transformation. Over time, this confusion becomes less scary. The initial chaos begins to organize, but something curious happens. The people around them begin to seem different. Some move away, some no longer arouse interest. Once common conversations now seem empty, and social distance becomes an inevitable side effect. When consciousness expands, something curious happens. The social circle begins to transform. Old friends seem to be speaking another language. Superficial conversations become unbearable, and previously pleasant social events become exhausting. This does not mean that others changed. It was you who changed. Your vibration is no longer the same, and it affects your connections. At first, it may seem lonely, but this phase is necessary. Social distancing is not forced isolation, but a natural realignment of your energy with what really resonates. Have you been caught in the middle of a conversation and suddenly realized you don't fit there anymore? It's like watching a movie that no longer holds your attention. Old friendships based on complaints and dramas lose their meaning, and the search for more authentic connections intensifies. This can generate guilt. After all, no one likes to feel that they are moving away from dear people. But this remoteness does not mean lack of love, but a need to preserve your energy. Some connections are renewed, others just follow different paths. And a loneliness? She can hit hard, especially at first. But it is in this solitude that intuition is strengthened, that self-knowledge deepens, and that spiritual mission begins to reveal itself more clearly. Instead of trying to fill the void with forced interactions, this is the ideal time to connect with yourself. Practices such as journaling, reflective writing, silent retreats, or simply spend more time in nature help turn this phase into something enriching. Silence may be scary at first, but soon becomes a powerful ally. Over time, new people appear. Only now, they vibrate as often as you. The connections become deeper, the dialogues become expansive, and the sense of belonging finally returns, but in a completely different way. What changes is also the perception of time. It no longer seems to flow as before, and the sense of displacement only increases. One day seems to fly, the other drags on. Minutes may seem hours, and weeks disappear in a blink of an eye. The perception of time becomes malleable, almost illusory. This is because, with spiritual awakening, the mind is no longer so anchored in linearity and starts to operate more intuitively. The clock loses the importance, and what really counts is the quality of the experience lived. But this can have a curious side effect, the feeling of being out of sync with the world around. Have you noticed how some activities seem to make time disappear? Moments of deep connection, such as inspiring conversation or creative work, flow as if time ceased to exist. On the other hand, forced obligations seem endless. This is because personal vibration is adjusting to a new frequency, and what is not aligned with this transformation becomes uncomfortable. This change can be confused at first, but it also opens an amazing opportunity, the chance to live more present and authentically. The feeling of distancing from time can also bring a challenge, the difficulty of adapting to everyday demands. Deadlines look unreal, agendas become suffocating, and the traditional routine begins to look artificial. The key here is not to fight this perception, but to find ways to balance it. Techniques such as intuitive organization, where you prioritize tasks according to your energy level and not just the clock, can be transformative. And accept that a few days will be more productive than others is part of the process. But this change in perception is not limited to time. It also affects the way we feel everything around. Sounds, lights, emotions, everything intensifies. Suddenly, what was once unnoticed now seems amplified. This energy sensitivity can be a gift, but also a big challenge. With spiritual awakening, energy sensitivity expands almost unbelievably. Suddenly, crowds seem overwhelming. Loaded environments generate a weight in the chest, and even people's tone of voice can cause discomfort. It's not freshness, it's a real vibrational change. The body and mind are more tuned to the surrounding energies, and this makes it impossible to ignore what was once unnoticed. This hypersensitivity may be challenging, but it is also a gift. After all, realizing more means understanding better what is really good. This manifests itself in a variety of ways. High sounds may seem deafening, very heavy foods begin to generate discomfort, artificial perfumes become annoying. Places where before hours passed smoothly now may seem suffocating. But the positive side is that this sensitivity also allows you to feel deeply the beauty of the little things. The wind on the skin, the shine of the sun, the vibrant energy of a tree. Everything gains a new intensity. It is as if life has been adjusted for a clearer resolution. But how to deal with this overload? One of the keys is in energy protection. Creating small daily practices can help, such as taking herbal baths. Chamomile and rosemary are great for calming. Carrying crystals such as pink quartz or black tourmaline, and establishing energy boundaries. Another important point is to respect this new sensitivity. If something looks too heavy, don't ignore that sign. This can mean moving away from certain places, changing habits, and even redefining your own lifestyle. And as this sensitivity is installed, something interesting happens. Emotions become even more intense. Joy can be overwhelming, but sadness also deepens. Life gains a more vibrant hue, and navigating these emotional waves becomes a true learning. Intense joy in one moment, deep melancholy in the other. Spiritual awakening transforms emotions into true waves, sometimes soft, sometimes overwhelming. It is no exaggeration. The heart begins to feel everything with an almost absurd depth. Small gestures can thrill, while injustices that were previously ignored now seem unbearable. Compassion expands, and the pain of the world becomes almost personal. But this emotional roller coaster is not a mistake. It is a sign that emotional armor is undoing, allowing a more authentic connection with life. This whirlwind can be challenging, especially for those who have always been proud to be rational and controlled. Suddenly, tears come without warning. A song can evoke forgotten memories, and even a simple sunset can arouse an inexplicable sense of longing. But the key here is not to resist, but to learn to surf these emotional waves. Instead of fighting them, it is more useful to welcome them as messengers of the energy transformation process. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to show me? Often, the answer brings deep insights. And how to deal with these oscillations. The practice of emotional writing, simply pouring into paper everything you're feeling without filters. Meditation to balance vibration and contact with nature helps stabilize this flow. Exercise are also great allies as they help to release accumulated tensions in the body. But perhaps the most important thing is to remember that all this is passenger. No wave lasts forever. All come and go, bringing learning with each cycle. And in the midst of this emotional process, a question begins to echo. What is the purpose of all this? Everyday life loses its common meaning, and the need to find a spiritual mission becomes unavoidable. There comes a time when just living on autopilot becomes unbearable. The work, the routine, the worldly distractions, none of this seems to fill more. There's an internal call, almost impossible to ignore, asking for something bigger. This is the beginning of true spiritual initiation. It is not about following a specific path, but of seeking a real purpose, something that makes sense at a deep level. Many at this point feel an almost uncontrollable desire to learn more, to connect with masters, books, and teachings that previously seemed irrelevant. This search can start in unexpected ways. Some people feel an impetus to explore practices such as meditation, Reiki, shamanism, or astrology. Others turn to the study of spiritual philosophies, from the ancient Vedic texts to Hermeticism. And there are also those who, without apparent explanation, feel the need to help others, whether through healing, guidance, or simply spreading knowledge. What matters is not the format, but the feeling that there is something greater guiding this journey. However, this phase also brings challenges. The old identity begins to collapse, and with it comes doubts, insecurities, and even moments of loneliness. What once seemed fundamental, status, money, recognition, loses its shine. This can generate crises, especially in a world that values more materiality than spirituality. But whoever goes through this portal realizes that the true reward is not out, but inside. The connection to intuition intensifies, the signs become clearer, and a new kind of certainty begins to emerge. But this certainty does not come without questions. After all, if life was an illusion, who are we real? What do we really come to do here? These questions lead to the deepest phase of awakening, the existential crisis. And that's where everything redefines. When the old identity collapses, the void settles. If nothing before made sense is still valid, then who are we? Where are we going? These questions are not mere reflections. They arise as an urgent call, a visceral need to understand their own existence. This is one of the most difficult moments of spiritual awakening, the existential crisis. What once seemed solid now is seen as a fragile construction of beliefs and conditioning. And this perception can be overwhelming. This crisis can manifest itself in many ways. For some, it comes as an internal restlessness, a feeling of being out of place. For others, it could be a need to break with everything: work, relationships, lifestyle. Nothing seems more authentic, and the search for meaning becomes unavoidable. It is like being in the middle of the landless ocean in sight. But as scary as it seems, this is a rite of passage. Every great transformation requires a period of deconstruction. The good news? This is not the end. It is the beginning. The existential crisis does not arise to destroy, but to release. The key to crossing this phase is an acceptance. Instead of fighting the emptiness, you need to explore it. Question yourself without hurry to find answers. Allow yourself to be a mystery under construction. And above all, trust that this process is leading to something bigger. It is often at this moment that spiritual mission reveals itself, bringing a new purpose of life. And when this new understanding begins to settle, everything changes. The relationship with the world, with time, with emotions. The illusion of reality falls apart, and in her place, something that has always been there, but has never been clearly seen. Awakening is not the end of the journey. It is just the beginning of a new way of existing. Now that you know the 10 effects of spiritual awakening, the big question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you ignore it and try to get back to your old way of seeing the world? Or will it embrace this transformation and allow your consciousness to expand even more? Because one thing is certain, since this process begins, there is no way to back down. And if you have come here, it is because you are ready to take the next step. But beware, knowing this is not enough. Awakening does not only happen in the mind, but in the way you choose to live. How can you apply this knowledge in your daily life? How can you use your intuition to make better decisions? How can you balance your emotional waves and find purpose in your spiritual mission? Only you can answer these questions, and your journey starts now. And to continue on this path, you need more knowledge, more tools, more clarity. So subscribe to the channel and enable notifications, because I will guide you in this transformation. In the next content, you will understand even more about these processes and learn to navigate them wisely. After all, awakening is just the beginning, and what comes later could be even more powerful. Now tell me here in the comments, which of these effects have you felt in your life? I will love to know your experience. We see each other in the next video.